This morning we're going to finish up the inside of the boat, and as I explained to you in the last video, I'm not going to go through all the repairs. They weren't that hard to do. Simply used a little bit of epoxy, and of course I used some filler on the hull itself. That's not a big problem because, as I stated before, I plan to paint the entire thing white. And the only exception to that will be the capping, which goes on top of the gunnel. So let's get going. The first bottom board is 6 by a half, and it goes right over the keelson. Once that is dry, we'll put the 8 bottom boards, which are 3 1/4 by 3/8 thick, and they sit right again on the ribs. The third floorboard is going in, and you'll see it's starting to taper both at the bow and at the stern. We are spacing the boards approximately 1 inch apart, which is slightly less than what is shown in the plan. I'm not quite sure why, but instead of the 8 floorboards, I've only been able to get 6 installed. The shape of the bottom of the model is exactly as planned. In fact, it's probably slightly overscale. So I'm not sure what went wrong, unless the dimensions shown in the plan were actually wrong. Anyway, it's a look that we're looking for. The gig is coming along very nicely. We've put all the seats in. We've put the rising in. And all the seats sit on top of that. So again, we've just followed the plan and put them in. We've put the 4 eyes in, which are needed to hold the boat in the davits. And those are simple brass eyes, the smallest we had. We had put the gunnel on the outside because where the ribs were, we couldn't put it on the inside. And now we're going to put the cap-in rail on the top of the gunnel, and it'll go over and cover the ribs. And then attached to that will be the holders for the Rowlocks. To make the capping rail, we're going to put this piece of mahogany in and then bend it on. So we'll put it in for 5 minutes, just like we've done with all the other pieces. So now we take that out. Interesting to see the pink mahogany discoloring the water. And so we just to follow the hull. And we just leave that to dry. We've also primed the bottom, and we have a few little cracks to fill in. Then we'll put on the bumper rail and then put the final white coat on the bottom. And once the inside is finished, we'll paint the inside as well. In the back, it called for a grating, but if we install this grating, I wouldn't be able to hook it up on the davits. So I'm ignoring that and putting some wooden slats. However, in the front, We're going to make up a grating. We've started with the bulk here, and this is the front base board. So we're going to cut this triangle out and fit the grating in it, and then fit the whole piece in the bow of the boat. I'm not going to go into the making of the gratings, as I have some videos on this. These were simply some pieces left over from another project that seemed to be perfect for this particular project. Well, I have to say, when I started on this journey to make a first-class Admiralty quality lifeboat, I wasn't sure what the outcome would be, but I am really very happy now to taking on the challenge, and all I can say is encourage each of you, because once you learn the technique, there's absolutely no way, in my case, that I can't reproduce this once, twice, 5 times, 1,000 times. She's come out beautiful. I think she's as good as most of the things I've seen. And now we're going to paint the bottom. And then, unfortunately, we're going to paint the inside white. Why? That's because I'm building a historically accurate model. And unfortunately, from what I can see, the lifeboats, or gigs as they're referred to, were all painted white, with perhaps the exception of the cap rail at the top. So that's what we're going to do. So I've taken out the pre-mixed airbrush paint, and I'll say the more I use the airbrush, the better I get at it. Hopefully one day I'll get rid of all my spray cans and just use the airbrush. And the only negative really is cleaning it up after every time you use it, and it's just getting easier and easier. We've struggled to clamp this piece in place. This is the capping, but I think we finally got it. This is the port side, and I'll actually film the installation of the starboard side. Now to put the final touch on the model. Touch up the capping ring. We'll have to put a few more coats, and then we just have the rudder to put on. While I'm working on the rudder, I've started bending for the second gig, or lifeboat. And of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces I bent, I got cracking on one. And what was interesting, I was able to reverse that one, and now it's not cracking. The 4 Rowlock holders, we struggled to figure out how to make those. Eventually we made a dowel out of mahogany, so we get a nice half round, and then simply cut it using a chisel. A few years ago I got a wonderful gift from my dentist, a bunch of dental bits that he had not used. They work great in a Cameron drill press, and they'll work in a Dremel if you have an adjustable bit. We've made up the Rowlocks from some section, some from K&S. This was a U-shaped section which I cut on my chop saw and then soldered to the brass tubing that I had, and it really came out fantastic. Again, you solder using a jig, and once you do that, it'll come out perfect every time. And now we have added the oars to the Rowlocks, and we're ready to go to sea. Hopefully this one is going to go better than the first one. So I've really waxed the mold, particularly the bow and the stern, which is where I had the challenges. And now I'm going to put on the polyvinyl alcohol that English gave me. I'm going to put 3 coats on. We leave that to dry for about half an hour to an hour. And we've done the same thing on the building frame. The second one is all ready to go. I'm not going to take you through the entire process. We'll just take you right to the end, and you'll see how it comes out of the mold. She's now totally planked, so I'm just waiting for it to settle down. Maybe leave it for 4 or 5 hours, and then we'll start the process. And now for the big test. We're going to use rubbing alcohol. This is 90%. To take off all the surface glue, then push it out, and let's see what happens. I put the alcohol on 3 or 4 times and scraped it off, just to try and make sure that I had glue that was easy to come off and that I had taken off. Now we're going to just cut off the excess ribs that are sticking up above, and then using a chisel pry it up very gently. Well, it's certainly coming out much easier, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed. Wow. So, and there's the film, and there's some of the film that's stuck in there. So there's no question that between the mold release wax and the PVA polyvinyl alcohol, it popped out. Despite all my apprehension, it popped out absolutely perfectly. So here's the solution to making the next 1,000 lifeboats or gigs that we feel. So Kevin Kenny from Lifeboat City signing off.